Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Henry, and please seek professional help when dealing with substance abuse issues. Don't take this as medical advice, but you can take it as spiritual advice. I'm so happy I've reached 90 days and not a drop of alcohol in 90 days, 3 months. All right, so the first thing I'd say is that I feel really good about it. And what am I going to do next? I don't know. We can talk about that. But one of the main points is that I'm not going to celebrate by drinking alcohol, because that sort of ruins the point. It makes it seem as if, oh, you're just looking for that 90 days to be over. And it's because I've reached a point of insight with who I am and my relationship with alcohol and drugs and other substances, including caffeine and sugar. I've reached a different point with them. And I don't, it's been so long since I've had a beer or wine or alcohol that I don't really miss it. I don't think about it as much. I don't think about it as something that I really need to enjoy life. There is so much more. And that's one of the main lessons I've learned with these 90-day cleanses, is that you just sort of, you're forced to, and you want to, you're motivated to find replacements for just sitting around and doing a drug, doing alcohol. So I have found that. So I found I am a little bit different to totally give up alcohol versus to drink socially very frequently. So that feels really good. So I am different. I am not really feeling the need. This is what happened the last time I did 90 days. I reached a point where I could take it or leave it. It's not really that important. I'm very cognizant of the negatives of alcohol. So one of the first negatives is that for me and for many, many people, perhaps most or almost all people, alcohol really interferes with sleep. That's something we have talked about. Sleep is really so critical for physical and mental health. That's one thing I've really learned now that I'm 62, and what the experts are saying, that sleep is not just rest, it's not just a minor thing. Sleep is very integral to mental and physical health. You really need good sleep to be at 100%, even 90%. If you're not getting good sleep, you're not going to feel as good. So that's one thing I've become particularly cognizant of. So now at 90 days, I don't know exactly when it happened, but it's been at least over a month, and probably longer, where I get 6 to 7 hours of solid sleep every night, rarely waking up. And I probably am, but I fall right back to sleep. Sleep experts say that people, you do wake up during the night, but you just, if you're not having that alcohol in your system or caffeine in your system, you just go right back to sleep. So I don't have any subjective personal sense of ever waking up in the night. I feel great in the morning. I don't need any caffeine at all. I don't want any caffeine. So that has made an enormous change in my life. Just that is really important. One of the newer things I wanted to talk about today is the idea of alcohol and existential choice, or choice theory, decision theory. How do we make up our minds? And that is something that actually we've been struggling through with these videos. I've been struggling through, and a lot of people have. Well, how do you make the decision how much to drink? Different cultures have different rules. A lot of people drink every night with dinner. They live to 80s and 90s. Or should you go by safe guidelines? Which ones? American, European, Italian? How much should you drink? And one of the insights of Kierkegaard and generally existential philosophy is the idea that we are free agents, we are free decision-making people, and there's no cut and dry answers to many of the questions that we have in terms of making decisions to go down path A or path B. There's no clarity about it. So that is part of the difficulty with doing alcohol, doing any serious drug, or even a minor drug. There's no answer to it. There's no, you have to make the decision. And it's a little of this, a little of that. And so that in itself can be difficult. That in itself can be a little bit anxiety provoking. And I think the average Joe will experience that drinking at a bar. It's like, oh, I've had 2, I've had 3, oh, should I have 4? I got to drive home or walk home, or what should I, and it becomes that kind of existential decision making that is difficult. So that's one of the real benefits of this 90-day cleanse, is that you don't really have to make this absolute decision. I mean, absolute decisions really give you that peace of mind. It's not in your mind anymore, it's zero, move on to something else. But it's hard to do that because then you're throwing away all the benefits. So the 90-day is a really good way to make that decision. So you make an absolute decision provisionally, which is sort of an oxymoron. But so that is part of the problem with alcohol. And it's a problem because alcohol, even if you're just a social drinker or a weekend drinker, is an extremely powerful drug. So it is something that you should be thinking about. They say, who's counting? You should be counting. You should always be counting because you're playing with dynamite. So you want to know how many sticks of dynamite are set out in front of you. So it is important. So you do have to think about it and make decisions. So that is one of the great things about being a teetotaler, is that you can put all that, the problem of decision making out of mind. And I really experience that now. I have been thinking about what I will do next, but I'm not going to jump into it. I have the feeling that, there's got to be probably a special reason why I would take a glass of wine, because I realize if, I'm out with friends and I have a couple glasses of wine, that I'm probably going to want to do that the next day, etc. So I probably need a good reason to start again, and I don't really feel the need. I'm very cognizant that it's really not going to make my life any happier, because you try to do the 90 days so you achieve a state of happiness at 90 days and contentment and acceptance of not drinking. So the goal is not to hang on with both hands turning blue. It's to really be very comfortable with it. And for I think a lot of us, it's going to take 90 days. If you are a severe alcoholic, the bad news is going to take you, experts sometimes say, 5 years to really return to normal, because you've done a lot of damage to your brain and your soul. That's the bad news. The good news is that as you reach that 5 years, you'll be very close to normal. Still an alcoholic, but you will have achieved that kind of happiness and contentment I'm talking about. Or it could be sooner, could be 4 years, could be 3, could be just a year. But you have achieved happiness and contentment with your own brain functioning without this very powerful substance. So I've talked about this 90-day cleanse as being a spiritual kind of cleanse. And it is that for many reasons. But I think another way of looking at it is just as a project, a rational project, just using cold calculating logic. It's very rational. It's a rational decision just to totally give up alcohol and other drugs, including caffeine and sugar, because you rationally know that alcohol is not giving you any more happiness overall. Yes, it's a very powerful drug. You can sort of make yourself happy in the afternoon, evening by drinking it. It does do something that you could qualify as happiness. Yeah, but what we've learned rationally is overall, well, you're going to pay the price for it. You're not going to sleep as well. Your hormones are going to be messed up. Your brain biochemistry is going to be destabilized. Your brain's going to have to work to getting back to baseline. So you may be under baseline for a while, so it's not going to feel as good. So when you count the good and the bad, when you add it all up, like being very rational, like an accountant of your moods and emotions, it's just a rational thing. It's like, overall, this is costing me. So a rational decision, I'm giving this up for my overall life. And 90 days gives you a chance to really see that. Yeah, so over 90 days, yeah, I wouldn't say I'd be any happier if I had been drinking when I went out with friends. So it is just a cold calculation of being very scientific, medical, rational. It's a cold calculation, though, that is based on your maximal happiness, which is an idea that philosophers talk about, maximal happiness. And just, a decision you make based on pure logic, pure thinking, what is in your best selfish interest. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a spiritual, you don't have to use spiritual language to deal with it. It can just be a prudent decision you make to increase your personal maximal happiness. So where am I going with this? Now I'm sitting on the top of the world. I'm at the mountaintop. I have this great clarity. I don't know right now. I have not made a decision to make another 90 days. Right now I'm just in this provisional state of being a non-drinker. I am focusing on caffeine and sugar. Caffeine's not such a big thing because it doesn't really have negative health effects, but I have learned for myself I really have to limit caffeine. Some people do like 1 cup of coffee in the morning, that's it, that's all they have, or 1 or 2 cups, or 1 cup of coffee, maybe some extra caffeine in the afternoon. I do just a weak black tea or green tea in the afternoon. That's very, very weak. I just do that. I like it. I don't feel the need for any caffeine in the morning because I have slept really well. I just slept 7, 8 hours. I don't need caffeine because I'm rested. And a lot of people who take caffeine are staving off withdrawal. So I don't think we really need caffeine in the morning. Why would we? You just were lying down for 8 hours or 7 hours or whatever. You're rested, so there should be no need for caffeine in the morning by anyone. The other thing I'm looking at, actually much more than alcohol, is sugar. One of the things I did during this 90 days is I replaced some of the, replaced all of the alcohol with doing other things and with sugar. And I'm really learning now that sugar, if you eat a lot of it, which I was, can be deleterious to your health. So I'm looking at right now removing a lot of sugar from my diet, which I already had been doing. Caffeine really is not having negative effects unless it really interferes with your sleep, but sugar, I would advise you to really look at some of the great YouTube doctors who are talking about sugar. You can start with Daniel Huberman. He interviewed Robert Lustig, and that is it's a three-hour video, but wow, I learned so much. Even Daniel Huberman learned something. So I would go to that video. Robert Lustig. Here's some others. Daniel Huberman has one just on sugar. You can look at David Perlmutter and Chris Palmer and Eric Berg. Those are all medical doctors or Ph.D. researchers on sugar. And interestingly, a sugar is in some ways considered like a drug, because it activates some of the same kind, that dopamine, mesolimbic reward center. So you actually get a big release of dopamine. So unlike other foods, so it does have an addictive nature to it. I don't think you're going to hold up a donut shop just to get donuts because it's so prevalent. But it is addictive, and it's also what they're saying is very bad for our health. You have a big insulin rush afterwards, and etc. They go through all the health effects, and including heart, very bad for cardiovascular disease. So that's what I've actually been focusing now on. Now that I've limited and eliminated alcohol, now I'm looking to limit sugar. So that's where I am. I don't know what I'm going to do next with alcohol. I have no plans to. I'm not really looking forward to going back to alcohol. It's very easy and comforting to be a teetotaler, make that absolute decision. There's a lot of comfort in that. But I just don't know. So I really wish you that luck and trying to take the challenge. The other thing I've learned is that, well, cutting sugar, I'm now on my third day and it's easier, but the first couple of days already was a little a little difficult. It reminded me of stopping alcohol. Not that I was eating that much sugar, but it was sort of become like bored eating and a nice dessert, something to do. And, I want to control my weight. I want to have better cardiovascular health. Hopefully my blood pressure go down a little bit. So all these little health issues for sugar. So for you, I would really look into 90 days. I think the first 4 days, the first 2 weeks were a little bit of an effort. I really had to work to distract myself because I had used alcohol as something to do. But I've really found it really doesn't count as something to do. So why is it sort of difficult to limit it then? Well, that's the problem. But I feel great, and I think if you take these 90 days, you will be at a different perspective. You'll have a totally different perspective looking back at what you've done, where you've come from, and where you want to go. It's a different state of mind, and so I really highly recommend it. I guess I'm feeling very celebratory. It is great. I hope you can try it and succeed at it, and I just wish you the best.